everyone. I call this meeting to order. It is 6:01 p.m. First item on the agenda is roll call. If I can ask you to identify, starting from my right.
Jessica Ochoa, present.
Carlos Margo, present.
Anita Chavez, present.
Rosalba Hernandez, present.
Celso Gomez Jr., present.
We have a quorum. We do have a board member missing, Alyssa Peña. Our secretary is out today, but we do have a quorum. Next on the agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance. If you're able to do so, please stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, next on the agenda is agenda item number 4, staff recognition, which is recognizing 4.1 recognition of weather response staff on January 21st, 2025. Joseph?
Apologies for that. Thank you, President Alvarez, members of the board, Dr. Sorensen, and the La Jolla ISD community. It is my absolute privilege to share recognition of our incredible La Jolla ISD staff in response to our recent weather event. On January 21st, 2025, La Jolla ISD closed due to extreme weather conditions. As a district, our top priorities is always the safety and well-being of our students, staff, and community. Despite the closure, we remain committed to serving our community during this time of need. That day, staff members from various departments stepped up to ensure students and families continued receiving essential services. Our child nutrition services worked together to distribute meals at 3 locations at our 3 comprehensive high schools, La Jolla High School, Juarez Lincoln High School, and Palmview High School. Additionally, our operations facilities team and our police department worked diligently to ensure all our campuses were inspected and in good condition. They made sure everything was up and running, ready to welcome our students and staff back the following day. Their dedication and hard work made a meaningful impact on our students and families. Today, we want to share their story. We want to express our gratitude to these employees for their selfless act of service and commitment to our community. Your actions are an embodiment of our district's values and a model of our vision for excellence. Your efforts truly make a difference, and we thank you for going above and beyond. So sharing a bit about the story of our La Jolla ISD Police Department. The police department carried out bad weather operations to ensure campus safety and provide support during curbside meal distribution. Campus-assigned officers conducted perimeter inspections of their respective schools to identify any weather-related issues. After completing the inspections, officers proceeded to their designated high school cluster locations to assist with traffic control during the curbside meal distribution. They even helped our superintendent when her car was in need.
It's true.
So please join me in thanking members of the La Jolla ISD Police Force for their contributions to that day. I would ask any officers or any staff from the police department that are in the audience to please stand to be recognized. Our La Jolla ISD Operations Infrastructure, Child Nutrition Services Department, cafeteria managers and helpers distributed meals to families throughout the district. They began their day early at 7 a.m. to prepare meals. They distributed them to cars between 9 a.m. and noon and spent from noon to 1 p.m. cleaning and restoring kitchens in preparation for meal service on Wednesday. The CNS warehouse staff provided food and supplies for distribution at each site. They also collected food from 5 campuses affected by power outages, stored it at the CNS warehouse throughout the day, and returned it once power was restored. Working from early morning until late Tuesday night, they ensured that the 5 campuses had fresh milk and food ready for school the next day. And more photographs of our CNS team. I'd ask members of the Child Nutrition Service Department who are in the audience to please stand to be recognized. Our physical plant and energy management departments worked as well. In our physical plant, they assessed campuses and responded to calls for needed water and pipe repairs across the district. Our energy management team was busy assessing and addressing issues with heating systems Sunday and Monday evening in preparation of the weather event. They assessed campuses for electric and heat outages across the district and responded to alerts. They communicated with local utilities and emergency agencies throughout the day and night, Monday and in the evening on Monday and Tuesday. They monitored campus systems throughout the day and all night, Monday and Tuesday during the cold temperatures. So I'd ask members of the physical plant energy management teams to please stand to be recognized. By the end of the day on January 21st, the team had served nearly 3,000 meals. At Juarez Lincoln High School, we distributed 950 breakfasts and lunches. At Palmview High School, 634 breakfasts and lunches. And at La Jolla High School, 1,416 breakfasts and lunches. School buildings were ready to receive student and staff on January 22nd, 2025. And I'd be remiss if I didn't include our great bus drivers who woke up in the early morning, still to frigid temperatures, to de-ice buses, ensure that they were safe, warm, and ready to run routes on time. So if any bus drivers are in the audience, please stand and be recognized. That concludes our staff recognitions.
Thank you, Joseph. I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to thank all of you that were involved, making sure that our students were fed during the cold days that we recently experienced, and also to make sure that they were safe. So on behalf of the board, I think I can honestly say that we're very grateful to all of you. We were thinking about you during those days that some of us were at work and some of us were with our own kids. But again, thanks to all of you for making sure that our kids were fed, which was a priority to us, and that they were safe that day. So thank you. Next item on the agenda? Oh, go ahead, Doug. Sorry.
Thank you, President Alvarez. I want to also just say thank you to each and every one of you. Thank you, police officers, for jumping my car. My car did die while I was at Palmview. And so everyone said that, what was it, that I had a valley car. It needed an extra bit of love. But what was most amazing to me was the spirit. We were having fun, right? Music was playing when I was at La Jolla High School. There were smiles, there were laughs, there were hugs. It was just a sense of warmth. Hot chocolate and donuts, right? There was hot chocolate and donuts. But just a sense of family really was pervasive throughout the day. I mean, lots of laughs and jokes. But, and that really, for me, I say this all the time, when we're serving the community is when we are at our very best. And so I was honored to be out there with you side by side, really watching you do what you do best, which is take care of our students and our families. So thank you so much. I am so grateful and I am humbled to be your superintendent. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Well said. Again, thanks to all of you. Any members of the board would like to add to our comments? Seeing that we have none, let's go ahead and go to agenda item number 5, Foundation of Excellence, the first 20 years of the La Jolla ISD 2026 to 1946, from humble beginnings to consolidated district. So the following would be Dr. Sorensen, Dr. Gomez-Perez, Mr. Silva, and of course, Mr. Chapa.
Thank you. So I'm going to introduce this board agenda item. I am more than, again, honored to introduce this item. I would ask committee members to also stand as I start introducing this item. It is with great pride and excitement that we present the La Jolla ISD Centennial Celebration, 100 Years of Educational Excellence. For a century, La Jolla ISD has been the foundation of learning, growth, and community in Western Hidalgo County. What began as a small consolidated school district in 1925 has flourished into a powerhouse of academic achievement, innovation, and student success. As we embark on this year-long celebration, we honor our district's rich history, dedicated educators, and the thousands of students who have shaped La Jolla ISD into what it is today. From historical presentations to a time capsule project and a district-wide community event, this milestone is an opportunity to reflect on our past while embracing the very, very bright future ahead. We look forward to making this 100-year anniversary a momentous occasion for our students, staff, alumni, and the entire community. So I really welcome everybody to celebrate a century of excellence, tradition, and the commitment to education right here at La Jolla ISD. Committee members, if you could please stand, and Ms. Gomez-Perez will introduce you. Thank you so much for being here.
Good evening, Mr. President Alvarez, board members, superintendent, and members of our community. As we celebrate 100 years of educational excellence, we know that a milestone like this deserves a thoughtful, engaging, and community-centered celebration. That's why our Centennial Committee has been working diligently to plan meaningful projects that honor our past while inspiring our future. So tonight, we're going to take a moment to highlight some of the key initiatives and the individuals that will bring our Centennial celebration to life. So as an overview, the theme is 100 Years of Educational Excellence. It's a year-long celebration where we are going to honor the district's history, achievements, and future, with community involvement at the heart of every event that we do. So I'd like to take a moment, none of this would be possible without our dedication, without the dedication of our Centennial Celebration Committee group, a group that is a group of passionate individuals who have come together to ensure this celebration is truly special for everyone. And so I'd like to introduce, we have students From our 3 comprehensive high schools, we have Kayla Cantu, who is a 9th grade student at La Jolla High School, Annabelle De Leon, 12th grade student at Juarez Lincoln High School, and Noah Garza, a 12th grade student at Palmview High School. Community members, we have Mr. Amancio Chapa Jr., who was the valedictorian of the class of 1965. And he was just sharing with me. He was just sharing with me that his dad was the valedictorian of the class of 1942. So lots of history in that family. If you ever get a chance to talk to Mr. Chapa, you can just sit there with him forever and ever, and just time flies. He is a retired educator, and he was also our fine arts director in the district. Ms. Leonora Garcia, she is a graduate of the class of 1983, a retired educator from La Jolla ISD. And we have also from our community, Dr. Filemona Leo, retired educator and a former superintendent of schools of La Jolla ISD. Our La Jolla staff, we have Angelica Garza, class of 2008. She is a counselor at Cavazos Elementary. Ms. Cristina Perez, she is a graduate class of 1998, a teacher at Kennedy Elementary. Mr. Ivan Silva, graduate of class of 2000, teacher at Jimmy Carter Early College High School. She is not present here, but Ms. Blanca Cantu, she is a graduate class of 2005. She is our PR and Communication Director for La Jolla ISD. Also serving on the committee is myself, Ms. Claudia Gomez Perez, Chief of Student, Family, and Community Engagement, and Dr. Marcy Sorensen, our Superintendent of Schools. And so thank you so much to each and every one of you for all of the time that we've spent together for our semester in planning lots of activities and projects for our schools and our community. So part of the projects of the Centennial Celebration are historical presentations that you'll get to witness today, historical museum that is on track to get opened and hopefully next month. Fine arts and athletic showcases, time capsule project, school beautification, school stories and namesakes at each of the schools. And so these projects are designed to reflect our district's rich history, showcase the incredible talent of our students and staff, and engage our community in commemorating this special occasion. Each initiative is a piece of a larger story, our story, the story of La Jolla ISD. And so today, we are going to kick off our celebration with our series, our documentary series that we're calling Decades of Excellence. And so it's a special Centennial Celebration series that will take us on a journey through La Jolla ISD's 100 years of educational excellence. Over the next several months, we will reflect on the pivotal moments, influential leaders, and transformative milestones that have shaped our district into what it is today. Our district has a rich history built on perseverance, innovation, and an unwavering commitment to student success. Each presentation will highlight a different era, showcasing the progress, challenges, and triumphs that have defined La Jolla ISD through the decades. As we kick off this series tonight, we begin by exploring the foundational years, 1925 to 1945, a time of growth, resilience, and laying the groundwork for the generations that followed. We invite you to join us on this journey to celebrate our legacy and look forward to the bright future that lies ahead for our students, staff, and our community. And so let's begin. Mr. Amancio Chapa Jr. and Mr. Ivan Silva will lead us in this amazing journey.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Claudia Gomez-Perez, for that introduction. It is an honor to be before our board and our community talking about something that, for me personally, is very dear to my heart because I am a graduate of La Jolla. And as a graduate of La Jolla, it's been a journey to kind of discover some of the history that I think sometimes we take for granted because we're living in the moment and enjoying what people have come before us to build. So we are going to talk a little bit, just the first 20 years. So just as a precursor to where we are today, the valley at some point was inhabited by some of our natives, Coahuiltecans and Karankawa tribes, which then we invited in, or we had people come into our area, establishing missions and settling in the area and expanding ranching communities, which eventually kind of culminated with the arrival of Jose de Escandon, which is also one of the namesakes of one of our schools. With the Escandon legacy, we have a lot of areas in South Texas that were developed, Reynosa, Camargo, and Mier, and the San Joaquin del Monte mission that was established. This journey allows us to kind of forge into the idea of literacy and building of excellence in the community of South Texas, specifically the La Jolla ISD School District. Under the leadership of Escandon, we had the ejidos that were given to settlers. Those particular ejidos later on would become the important cities of South Texas that are the foundational cities of our district. So this happened in the in the 1800s. We had cities like Reynosa Diaz, La Jolla, Abram Perezville, and Peñitas that were established. Even after Mexico gained independence in 1821, many Tejano families maintained their deep culture and economic ties to the land, and the landscape started shifting. We had the Texas Revolution in 1836 and later the Mexican-American War, which formally established the Rio Grande and as the U.S.-Mexico border. And as we arrived in the 20th century, the Rio Grande Valley saw a transformation that would change our future forever. This is the arrival of the railroad in South Texas, which kind of paved the way for our cities to be developed because there was a center of commerce and irrigation a need for irrigation started exploding in the area. So we had an influx of Midwestern settlers coming to this area of Texas. And we had Mexicans also seeking to improve their lives. So population basically boomed. We had a large growth of the native population and these immigrant settlers from the Midwestern. So during this time period, what occurred is all these individuals had a need for education for their children, for their offspring, the community. And so they started developing what we knew at the time as rural schoolhouses or the escuelitas in South Texas. And these little escuelitas were somewhat structured educational systems, but they were dispersed throughout the area. And so this area was home to the first schools in Hidalgo County, including the communities of Tabasco, Havana, Los Ebanos, San Ramon, Peñitas, Linda Vista, and Guadalupe. And these escuelitas, these schoolhouses, were basically run through the county in individual cities. They weren't necessarily connected. It wasn't a large system. But they had a group of dedicated teachers who were working in those areas, a lot of them also from the native area from South Texas. And our foundation of education in our district kind of stems from this and throughout Western Hidalgo County. The teachers at the time included names like Richard March, Guadalupe Ornelas, and Nellie Leo Jr. I'm going to focus on Nellie Leo Jr. as a person of note or significance. It is the namesake to this building and a very important part of our community. Ms. Nellie Leo Jr. lived from 1878 to 1920, and was a key figure in the early education of the area. She was someone who fought to educate our children and the community and was a pioneer in that. So she dedicated a portion of her life to educating the children of La Habana, La Jolla, and South Texas. She worked to create high schools to serve Western Hidalgo County students. Eventually, she also moved to be a superintendent of a nearby school district. As the population grew in the La Jolla area, or what would be known as La Jolla eventually, a lot of things had occurred. We had neighboring settlements that included, like I said earlier, Havana, Tabasco, Los Ebanos, Cuevitas, Jardín de Flores, Abram Peñitas. but around July 20th of 1925, we had some of our local citizens that came together and proposed the creation of a consolidated school district. And so, as I was discussing with Mr. Chapa earlier, we were talking about how the roots of our history are the influx of people coming here, but also the Mexican Americans in our area. And in our research, what Mr. Chapa has discovered is that it looks like our school district may have been composed of the first group of 7 Mexican Americans on a school board that actually fought to establish a consolidated school district, which is something of note for our area as we celebrate our culture and our history. And so again, in 1925, 25 citizens proposed the creation of the consolidation of these little escuelitas throughout the area. And the belief here that led to this was that if we established a first Havana school, all students in the area could learn, develop, and grow in a united way. This leads us into August 4th of 1925, when a formal petition was made to create the district. It unanimously passed with a vote of 170 people, which consolidated the school district under the name of the Tabasco Consolidated Independent School District. The district was initially called that, and throughout the following years, it was also moved that it would be renamed to La Joya Independent School District. And so our roots are in the name of Tabasco. So we have our school, Tabasco Elementary, that is also part of the area. It's the name of the city and a location within our community that we honor. So in May of 1926, that school district was consolidated, now La Joya Independent School District. And as you'll see in the presentation, there are some snippets because we wanted to share that this is not only a part of our history and the narrative that we've told each other and which has been passed down, but there are historical artifacts in a lot of the local newspapers that have allowed us to preserve this information and collect it and to highlight it for you today. You'll see on the slide that we have the Texas State Historical Association marker that commemorates the Nellis Jr. Memorial High School. When the building was first put together, it is cost about $226,000 to build at the time. I think if we could think about that number in today's numbers, you're like, oh, that's nothing. But it's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing because the school building was considered to be one of the most handsome brick buildings of the area. Its structure that we're standing in today at the time was a very imposing structure. It basically was one of the largest buildings that existed at that time. So it attested to the value that has been placed on education by the citizens of the La Joya area, a value that continues today. The school was named in honor of Nelly Leos Jr. for the work that she did and pioneered in the area and pushing the idea of educational equity for our community. Unfortunately, Ms. Leo did not live to see it being completed, but it has been built and continued its legacy to her work, and also the legacy of La Joya ISD. Some of the early educators, when the school district was begun and we consolidated into the Tabasco, started with a school housing 18 teachers. The staff at that time included one individual by the name of Elzada Clover, who was a former teacher of the Peñitas Common Schools, right down the road from us. And Elzada then eventually became the first superintendent of the Tabasco Consolidated Independent School District. Along with Elzada, we have her sisters Vida and Edna Clover, who also worked at the school as part of those 18 individuals. At that time, Elzada Clover's salary per month was $200, right? And teachers at that time, their salaries ranged from $80 to $125 a month. And again, we had 18 teachers. On the next slide, you'll see an image of Elzada Clover, who lived between 1897 to 1980. She was born in Auburn, Nebraska, talking back to that, the Midwestern influence coming into the area. So Clover was a pioneer, botanist. She was an adventurer and an educator. Clover was one of the first female superintendents of schools in South Texas. And that's of note because, again, we're talking about the educational legacy of our district. And a lot of the influential characters and community members who served to make our school district what it is today, there's a lot of firsts for the area. A lot of things that we pushed, we were very forward-thinking. Clover also earned her master's in 1932 and a PhD in 1935 in botany from the University of Michigan. Today, a lot of her research, her thesis, and her collections are housed at the University of Michigan's archives, so they can be actually accessed online. Not only was she a pioneer in the area of education because she was the first female superintendent, but she also co-led the 1938 Neville's Expedition. She became one of the first women to raft the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon. Which is of significant note, again, talking about that legacy of the people that have been fused into the tapestry of who we are. We're very strong individuals in the area pushing and building academic excellence and the desire to continue expanding that education across South Texas. Clover would eventually catalog hundreds of plants, species along the river, including several newly identified cacti. This is an image of Zeta Clover at the river when she was rafting from 1938, where she said, "My life has been full of adventures, but this sounded like the aces of them all." In 1926, we also saw the first graduating class that came out of the Consolidated Independent School District. Because we consolidated the schools, this is the group that graduated at the time. This includes individuals from the community like Angelita Cavazos, Adolfo de la Garza, Rodolfo de la Garza, and Mauro Reina. The following years, we saw graduates including names like Leopoldo Zamora, Guadalupe Garza, Rafaela Treviño, and Dolores de la Garza. Go ahead.
In our research, we also came across a very interesting individual that at one time served as one of the principals of our high school back in the 1930s. And I want to show you, I brought with me, because I have a book that he wrote in 1933. The man's name was Jose de la Luz Sainz. This individual was hidden for a long time in the history of Texas, but now he's coming into his own as university professors have looked into his background, and you'll find a very extensive history on him in the textbook of Texas history. And he wrote a book called Los Mexicoamericanos en la Gran Guerra. And he started writing that book while he was a teacher here in La Jolla. He taught and lived in the Penitas area. He went on to teach in McAllen, several other South Texas school districts. But one of his claims to fame is that he served in World War I. And when he exited his military service, he ended up here in La Jolla and started writing this book. Eventually he finished it in 1933. And it chronicles what life was like for a Mexican-American veteran or soldier in World War I. This person was an educator. He contributed a lot to defending the educational rights of Mexican-Americans at the time. And he was attracted to the school district because of its founding, its original 7 founders. And he taught, as I point out, in several other areas. So I would ask you and anybody here in this room, if you're interested in part of the history that ties into La Jolla, look him up on the internet. You just Google Jose de la Luz Sainz. This book now has been published. It's all in Spanish, but it's now been translated into English by Texas A&M Press, and it was translated by a professor at the University of Texas. So he was also somebody that was I think, helped this school district put itself on the map when it came to education.
So again, individuals like this kind of help us cement that idea and that history of not only of the district's dedication to commitment to excellence, but also the pioneering individuals who have forged where we are today, and as we continue working towards that. As we arrive in the year of 1938, the district at that time, 1938, we were the largest in the state by total area. Right? That's one of those things that we've always talked about in our history of La Jolla, is that we are one of the largest districts in South Texas. So that's not something recent. We've served a very large part of our area since basically the inception. At that time, as their system grew, we had a need for transportation, something also very important in our school district. And we celebrated and we were very honoring some of our individuals in transportation earlier because they are a very important part of what we do in our school district. And so as the system grew, we established the use of Model T trucks that had benches on the back and they were covered with a tarp. And on these benches is where the students would travel at the time. And the students nicknamed these buses at the time as paddy wagons. And again, there's a reference to that in a couple of articles online. And as we bring this time period to an end, again, this between the 1890s to 1945, we saw a lot of educational transformation occur for us in the La Jolla area. News reports from 1940 show that the district was composed of 1 main school and 7 primary schools by 1940. The dedication of early educators and community members like Nellie Leo Jr. created the foundation of what is today the La Jolla ISD. The consolidation and construction of the new high school marked a significant milestone for educational access for this area of Western Hidalgo County. And this period represents a key chapter in the history of education in La Jolla as well. We look forward to coming back in the next meetings and sharing the next 20 years as we continue with these installments until August when we reach our 100th year officially. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chapa. Mr. Chapa, Mr. Silva, thank you very much for that educational and informative presentation. And we're looking forward to every month hearing more and more. So thank you for that. I know a lot of work went into it. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you both. Moving on to the next agenda item is agenda item number 6, which is our public comment portion of our meeting. I'm going to ask our Vice President, Anita Chavez, who will be taking the time, and also will be calling out those that have signed up for public comment. If you hear your name, please make your way to the podium. Again, as a reminder, you do have 3 minutes. At the end of 3 minutes, our Vice President, Ms. Chavez, will inform you that time is up. So with that said, our first speaker.
We only have one, Ms. Brenda Lee Salinas.
Ms. Salinas, welcome back.
Thank you. Well, good evening, Mr. President, esteemed board members, Dr. Sorensen, and the valued community members joining us from home. On behalf of the La Jolla AFT family, we want to express our gratitude to you, Mr. President, and your colleagues on the board in the recognition of School Board Appreciation Month at the La Jolla ISD. Your unwavering commitment to our community is commendable. You have faced challenging decisions while consistently prioritizing the educational achievement of every student in our district, so thank you. While it is important also to acknowledge past wrongdoing, but we cannot deviate from moving forward by working together in a district that we still need healing, right? It's very important. So we appreciate your leadership in guiding our district towards a brighter future. So again, thank you very much for that. Now, I've spoken to a lot of members that are so excited that you've visited their campuses, and their responses have been overwhelmingly positive about the exemplary customer service that you provided to them and the students. And I just want to share with you, Mr. President, that you made a big difference when you visited one of the campuses, and this member was bypassed by her principal, but you took the time, the initiative to go ahead and greeted her and her students. So it's something that she will not forget. So she was excited. She called me after school and mentioned that. So I wanted to share that with you. So shout out to you and to all the school board members. This sincere gesture truly makes an impact and deserves recognition to you and to all of the your colleagues on the board. So again, thank you. So I want to conclude just briefly by talking about the Texas Safety Educators Bill of Rights and the significance. I know that La Jolla FD has advocated for you all to be here. We cried out for help, and we know your stance on this. We know that. But we really want, and we are advocating for this Bill of Rights. We need your support. We need our local and leader support so that you all can help us make this possible. This is very important for not only our members, but every public school employee throughout the state of Texas. And what we're doing is that we're promoting, we want to make sure that every school employee receives a fair working conditions, fair wages, reliable retirement benefits, quality child care, and safe and healthy working environment, and meaningful trainings and development opportunities. So this is very essential for public education and a brighter future for both as children and school employees. So please, in your next school board meeting, consider, there's 10, you can read them again, you can decide which ones that you want to go ahead and endorse and approve on Wednesday, February the 12th. So we're really looking forward to that. I just want to end with
your
this.
3
Thank
minutes
you.
are up.
Thank you very much for your attention and everything that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Salinas. Before you leave, can I share something with you? Go ahead and pass them up to Mari. Ms. Salinas, while you're there, and though I truly appreciate the comments that you made regarding our visits this past month, let me convey to you that, like you said, this was new to us, this new role that we have. And I will say that there's nothing more gratifying and humbling than to walk into a school where you feel so appreciated. And I will tell you, I went in there not knowing what to expect. But as I shared with all of our educators, our frontline, our custodians, anybody that was there, that we're doing such a great job. And we have such a great district. And the kids are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The kids are amazing. The talent that we have, the singing that took place, the mariachis, the cheerleaders, the band, the choir, the people that we got to meet. Let me tell you, I was overwhelmed. And I've never felt so loved as I did the last couple of weeks. And so I even promised the schools at every board meeting I would bring a little swag to the meetings, because they said, we're giving you this, we want to make sure that we see it on Wednesday's meeting. So I promised them that I would. But please convey to the folks that you represent that we're very grateful to be representing this fine institution in this fine city of La Jolla.
And they felt very much loved as well, sir.
Thank you.
So thank you. Mhm.
Members of the board, do you have anything to add? Seeing that we don't have any, thank you, Ms. Salinas,
Thank you.
again for everything. Thank you. Ms. Chavez, do we have any others signed up for presentation?
No, that is it for public comment.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that ends our public comment portion of our meeting. Next portion is the superintendent's updates and announcement. Dr. Sorensen?
We will start first with, so we'll build on Ms. Salinas' comments and go right into 7.1 with Board Recognition Month. And Mr. Nagella, please present.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Members of the board, President Alvarez, and the community. As we know, January is School Board Recognition Month, a time dedicated to celebrating the incredible work and commitment of school board members across the state of Texas. Tonight, we want to take this opportunity to honor and celebrate our board members here at La Jolla ISD for their dedication, vision, and service to our students, staff, and community. Serving as a school board member is more than a role, it's a calling. You are the backbone of our district's success, investing countless hours to ensure our schools are equipped to provide the very best for every student. Your decisions and leadership have a ripple effect, helping to shape the bright futures and making a difference in the lives of thousands of children and families. As this week marks the last week of January, we want to close this month of celebration with a heartfelt token of appreciation. I'd ask the school board members if you'd please step out from behind the dais for a presentation.
Members
of a
of the
small
board, if you
token.
could make your way in front of the dais.
To show our appreciation, we proudly present this token of gratitude to each of you. It's a small gesture that reflects the immense respect, admiration, and thanks we hold for all of you. On behalf of the entire La Jolla ISD family, we thank you for your commitment and leadership. You exemplify the essence of service and dedication, and we are truly fortunate to have such an extraordinary team guiding our district. As we celebrate School Board Recognition Month, we're reminded of how vital your contributions are, not just this month, but every single day. If the audience would please join me in giving our board one more round of applause.
Thank you.
Board President, if you don't mind, I'd like to personally thank each and every one of you. This journey has been quite a journey for the past year. It's almost our 1-year anniversary. We're about to celebrate 1 year very shortly. And I cannot say how lucky, and I know you don't like to say lucky, President Alvarez, but how lucky and blessed I am to have a hardworking, dedicated, focused board who spends endless hours taking me to task and making sure that we are doing what is best for children in this district every single day. And so that shows up in how hard we work together to make sure that the decisions that we make together really are moving La Jolla ISD forward. And so I am grateful for each of you and your work and your passion and your dedication to the district, to our employees, to our families, but most of all to our students. So each and every one of you, I want to, as the superintendent, really thank you so much for your time and your dedication and your heart and your love.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Any board members have anything to add before we go to the next agenda item? Dr. Hernandez?
I would like to express my sincere gratitude for all of you being part of this board, and working with such high-quality individuals makes it easier and a little bit calmer for us to take care of these difficult decisions that we have to do. But I'm proud of us, and thank you all for everything you do.
Thank you, Dr. Hernandez. Well said. Anyone else? Yes. Next agenda item, Joseph, again, thank you very much for the presentation. Next agenda item is Elementary School ACE Campus recommendations. This is going to be tag teamed by Ms. Miller and Dr. Little.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, board, superintendent, and community. We are here to share our final recommendation regarding accelerated campus excellence turnaround and restart models within the district, continuing our conversation that we started more than 2 months ago, building on the state of the district and the quality schools analysis that we conducted earlier in the fall. To begin our conversation, we just really want to step back and situate this in the context of where we began in looking at our schools and continuing to ask ourselves, what do we need to do as a school district to ensure that every student has access to the highest quality opportunities and outcomes in La Jolla ISD? We know when we look at Zapata, Garza, and Seguin for tonight's conversation that these 3 elementary schools have performed significantly below the state average, and certainly below where students deserve and where they need to be, and we will get into that further throughout tonight's conversation. We also know that this is not a 1-year anomaly. This didn't just happen last school year, but has been a pattern of decline that we've seen in these schools and certainly evident over the past 2 school years. ending up in the place where all three schools earned either a D or F verified rating from the TEA for last academic year. Thus, we are back here tonight to express our recommendation, along with what we've heard and learned along the way from the community in these conversations about what we need to do in support of students at these three communities. So to recap that recommendation to get us going, we are recommending still that we would close Zapata and we would work with those families to move them to Garza or Seguin. And at Garza and Seguin, we would restart those schools with the accelerated campus excellence model. That in turn moves us closer to something you're going to hear later, which is our continued commitment to make sure that every student has access to an A or B rated school and that we are truly doing what we can to not only serve their academic needs right now, but make sure they are set up for success for the long term. As a quick reminder, when we talk about accelerated campus excellence, we are basing this off of more than a decade of work in Texas that has really shown and been proven to greatly impact student outcomes. And it really bases on two big things. One is leadership and instruction. That's making sure that we have the highest quality, most effective leaders and teachers working with our students every day, and sits on a really strong foundation of instructional excellence, ensuring that we have the highest quality instructional materials for our students and teachers to use, along with other resources and evidence-based practices to ensure that our students are getting the best things possible, not just the best at those schools, but the best anywhere at any school. And then knowing that this is not just an academic pursuit, but that we want to support the development of the whole child and really understand the holistic supports that students and in some cases families may want and may need. We will talk about this first thing much more as we go along in the conversation. But the accelerated campus excellence model does come with an extended school day, and that's intentionally done to make sure that students have access to that time and space to really breathe and go deeper into their learning, but also have access to additional supports and opportunities. One of the things we heard loud and clear from the community is that we need to understand and support our students through any change like this, certainly the emotional process that they have to go through in an adjustment like this. And that's really one of the key things that Accelerated Campus Excellence does, which is infuse additional opportunities for mental health services, social emotional development, and other things that can really build out the whole nature of children in these schools. And while, and many are certainly sitting here in the audience tonight that we have talked to throughout the process, but we want to ensure that as we move forward, if the board accepts our recommendation, that we continue to engage with the community to build these schools out into places that they see as an anchor and center of the community for them, that not only is supporting and serving their child, but is a place that the parents and the family as a whole can really benefit and see themselves participating in. And then lastly, and we'll look at some more data in a second, but just a quick reminder here in terms of impact. Again, this is not something that La Jolla ISD dreamed up. We are bringing the best evidence-based practices and work into the district where needed, and that's what ACE is. And we know that schools who've gone through this program start to grow really rapidly. They outpace their peers in other districts and in other contexts, and we see that result immediately. The other important thing here is as we think about our commitment long-term to students, it's not just how do we get out of D or F status right now, but how do we stay there? And how do we really sustain success and excellence for our students? And we can see in the evidence of Accelerated Campus Excellence that it certainly does that. So let's take a quick step back to what's really compelling us to stand in front of you tonight and what compelled us to make the original recommendation. And that's because of what we're seeing at these schools as the opportunities and in some cases the limit to opportunities that our students are facing. When we shared the state of the district back earlier in the fall, we shared this slide, and it looks at our elementary school performance on STAR last school year. So that's all grade levels 3, 4, and 5. It's all content areas, math, science, and social studies, and science, and how well they did on that assessment at the grade level standard, so at that MEET standard that we continue to talk about. And what we see on the left-hand side of this slide are the 3 schools that we are making this recommendation for. We see Garza, Seguin, and Zapata. You also see Pena. We'll come back and remind the board and the community about why we're not continuing Pena to be included in this conversation at this point. But part of what we see here is the data shows that at best we're getting to 30%, maybe a little over 30% of students meeting grade level. Let's understand a little bit more what that actually means for our students. So if I'm a third grade student sitting at Garza right now, that means I don't have the ability to engage with a paragraph of text. If I really want to pick up a comic book or pick up a book that I get at the library or that I see somewhere else, I'm not going to be able to understand what those like symbols and words are on the page. Maybe I can decode and sound out some of them, but I can't actually access all of that text as I should. Because remember, the third grade space is super pivotal. We go from teaching students how to read. You heard Ms. Lozano and Mr. Duque talk about that with map fluency, like all of the science and hard work that goes into being able to unpack letters and sounds and words and phrases. Third grade is where that transition has to happen to say we've got that covered. Now we're using those skills to access all of the other knowledge that we have to learn and gain as a student. And right now, 70+% of students at these three schools cannot do those skills. That is something that we cannot accept as the best we can do. And that is the biggest basis of why we are making this proposal this evening. You can see this even further as we look at these schools for reading and math. The last slide pulled all of the content and grades together. What we've done here is separated it out. So you see reading on the left. Again, we're maybe getting close to that 40% range, but that still means 60% of those students can't do what I just described. And some of them still sitting in a 5th grade classroom can't do what I just described, and they're getting ready to transition to middle school. And then on the math side, just to make this a little bit more concrete, what we often see students getting to do as they move into the 2nd and 3rd grade space, and certainly into the 3rd to 4th grade space, is you go from having to understand basic things about numbers, and maybe you're doing some addition and subtraction, and you're getting that sort of 1-digit, 2-digit, but you got to expand into concepts that start to build the foundation of algebra. Do I actually know what multiplication means? Do I know what 8 times 7 is, and am I able to represent that? Am I able to start to understand the concept of fractions and their relations to decimals? I'm going to be back up here in a little while talking to you about high school outcomes, and we're going to talk about whether students are passing the College Ready Exam TSI in math. And if I didn't build those concepts early on that are the foundation of algebra and ultimately the language of mathematics while I'm sitting as an elementary student, I'm still struggling as a sophomore, junior, or senior in high school with those same skills. So again, we would certainly ask the board, we would ask the community whether or not that we think this is the right and only choice for students. It's certainly the recommendation we're making. But we can all agree that we don't want students down the line still struggling with things that we should be getting right now for them in their elementary context. And this does have long-term impacts. Yes, tonight's conversation is about Zapata, Seguin, and Garza, but it isn't just about that. The students who are sitting in 5th grade in those schools right now, next year will transition, and most of them to J.D. Salinas, Trevino, Sines, and they're going to be in middle school, and things start to change pretty rapidly. And if they can't meet the academic rigor requirements in middle school, that's going to carry with them when they go to Juarez Lincoln and become a Husky, and they're not able to access the P-TECH pathways, the CTE pathways. Think about dual credit that we've been talking about so much because we didn't fill their bucket successfully early on. And so this is, yes, a narrow recommendation that we're making about 3 elementary schools, but we can't think about that as just about what's happening in pre-K-5, but we have to think about what that means for the lifetime journey that these students will be on. I shared with you that this year, all 3 of these schools earned a D or F verified rating. You see that on the bottom right of this slide. We also said that, hey, Pena was included in this data set, but we would come back and explain why we're not including them in tonight's conversation again, and that's what I want to do here. You see here that Pena is forced to be a 69 rated school. That is the highest D that they can possibly earn. And the reason they're sitting there is because of how the accountability school treats individual components of the accountability system. Pena actually earned a low C rating, so they would have been at the top right in the yellow colors here on this slide otherwise. But because they had 3 domains that did not do as well as they needed to, that's why we're forced to say that they are a 69. That does not mean that we are not taking that concern seriously and working with that school to also meet the needs of students and improve. It just means that it's not quite ready yet for the structural change that ACE brings and that ACE requires. So that's something with the principal, with the school, with our team of support. We certainly would continue to see PINYA move forward and show improvement and growth. And then I also clarify that this isn't just a one-year thing. Now, this slide shows 2-year data. And the change that we've seen over a 2-year period. You can see Garza, for example, at the very bottom right of this slide, has lost 30 points in achievement over the past 2 years. Garza and Seguin have also gone in the wrong direction. I will come back and share something that the community really stressed in just a little bit, that the schools weren't always here, and that is true. But they are here now, and that's what we have to respond to. So we are including, as the sort of center of this recommendation, building out the accelerated campus excellence model at these 2 remaining schools. And just as a reminder, ACE in this context, and remember ACE is not to be confused with our after-school ACE partner. This has no bearing on our relationship or partnership with them, and we certainly plan to continue that. But we're looking at school turnaround. And as we think about our work with System of Great Schools, as you start to hold us accountable to our Lone Star governance progress with our goals and GPMs and how well we are actually doing with and for our students, ACE brings rapid turnaround and improvement. At the student level, we'll see accelerated success, we'll see rapid growth there, and ultimately many more students at these schools meeting grade level outcomes. So much so that in over 50 campuses in the state of Texas, we have seen that before they started ACE, they were also a D or F rated school. And within 2 years of this work, nearly 80% of them earned an A or B status. And that is the exact thing that we are in pursuit of here for our families and our students in these 3 communities. The other thing that we heard loud and clear is really a lack of sort of feeling or seeing what it would be like to be a student at an ACE campus. So on this slide and the next, just want to spend a minute sort of painting that picture as best as we can on paper, knowing that it will bring itself to life if we pursue this. And the first thing to know is, like, the moment the student shows up to school, they get off the bus, they get out of the car, they're walking up, however it is that they get there, they'll notice a difference. ACE schools come along with a bit of sprucing up, so the campus looks and feels different. It becomes a more inviting and joyful and warm and welcoming place. And so the moment you arrive on campus, you can feel that. And we'll touch on this more later, but we know that there are phenomenal teachers and loving staff members at these schools right now. We've got to make sure that's true for every single one of them. So when a student's walking through the door in the morning, they're greeted by people who are super excited to see them. They're loving on that student, they're welcoming them in, and they're ready to support their learning and growth. That feeling of belonging and that feeling of support, but also coupled with super high expectations, is one of the things that makes these really special learning environments. In the classroom, again, they're working with the most highly effective teachers and leaders, which means that they have people working with them that know how to meet them where they are. So if I am that 3rd or 4th grader who's still struggling with foundational literacy skills, I have a teacher who's super expert in that work, and they're going to help me build those skills and get to where I need to be, where I can read that full book or I can read that full text, and I can go start to explore the things that I am most interested in as a student and a learner. I mentioned earlier, a big piece of this is support for mental and social emotional health and development. So our counselors and our teams will have more time to work with students on those things, bringing in great programming and great services for students to explore and enrich their journey. And then, yes, there is another hour to the school day here. That additional time helps make sure that we can expand and extend those opportunities as students need it. So if I need a little bit more time working on that literacy lesson or working on those multiplication concepts, I have that time and I have that support, both individually and in small group with teachers and support on the campus. But I also have time to do some cool things I may not have ever gotten to do before. I really want to understand what coding or robotics is like. We get to build that in now to the school day as part of that learning experience. And so, yes, we will continue to focus on our core work. There will always be math, reading, science, and social studies in our schools. And you've seen us this year make a deeper commitment to do that really well and do it with excellence, using the best resources and materials available. But students at these schools will also have more times for the things on the right-hand side of this slide. I'm getting to go deeper in executive function, resilience, social emotional development. I'm having more time to explore arts or athletics or PE beyond what other elementary students are getting to do. Again, bringing in those enrichment activities. And it's important to note here, these are not things that we just want to decide for the school. These are conversations that we will have with parents and with community to say, hey, what are the enrichment activities that you really want to see your students getting access to and getting exposed to? And then specialized learning is really the opportunities to have that more individualized support from teachers and from educators to make sure that we are closing any learning gaps. And now I will sincerely try to do my best to represent what we heard from the community in these conversations. And as a reminder, we've had extensive conversations with the community and faculty and staff about this recommendation, starting before we even made the recommendation. Going back to September and really answering a call from the faculty and staff at Garza and some of the community to say, hey, we need help. We are struggling and we need some attention over here. We went, we listened to that. We've obviously made some changes at the school this year in response to it. But as we dug into the data, as we looked at this, we knew we needed to do more. Like students there also needed more. That alone was not sufficient. And so when we made this recommendation to you back in early December, we then went and talked to every stakeholder we could. So meeting with principals at these 3 schools, talking to all of the faculty and staff there, and then meeting with parents, community members, and engaging with students as well. Just like with our early college proposal, we did put publicly out a bilingual informational website, which we shared in these sessions, but anybody could go on, they could see the presentation, they could listen to it, they could read about it, they could better understand transparently what we were trying to do and why. I know that there is a parent tonight listening that's going to hold me accountable to how well I represent what we heard. And I certainly want to do that humbly and really respect what we did here. From our families. Starting with one of the most difficult things, certainly the most emotional piece of this conversation. And we heard this across the board. We particularly heard it from nearly 300 people that showed up at our Zapata community meeting. Over 200 individual families represented in this conversation. And what many of those speakers shared is that they felt targeted. And we have to hear that and we have to accept it. But we also have to acknowledge that they are being targeted because of the outcomes that we're seeing for students. Like this is a pursuit to do the best that we can for the students at those schools. But it's not at all an indictment against that community or against those faculty and staff. Like this is a structural change we have to pursue to get the best outcomes. We also are fully committed, understanding that there is disruption that students and families will face if you approve us to move forward. And we've got to be there side by side with them, helping them through that transition, both immediately planning for what this means next year, but also showing up next year at their new school and feeling like they belong, that they have instant connection and community, and that they can be excited about what their student is going to receive in that school. The other thing related to this is we know that the schools haven't always been a D or F status. And across all 3 campuses, we heard a really strong appeal that we should give them more time to improve, specifically more time on their own to get better. So don't make these changes just yet. Let us show you that we can do better. Again, take that feedback seriously, certainly hear that. All of these schools at some point had a B rating. What we also have to acknowledge is that they don't now. You again see that more than 70%, at best case, more than 60% of their students are not where they need to be, meeting grade level expectations, and the schools have consistently declined. So we must take action. It's on us to honor that vision on the floor right there. If we really believe that it's the right of every student, we can't just sit back and say, but you get to sit in that space a little bit longer and we'll be okay with it. So yes, this is creating urgency for us to serve our students in the best way. Because folks didn't love the first or the second thing, we get to the third one here, which is some families telling us they may choose to leave the district. I take them at their word for that. I think some families probably will. I think what they will see and what it's on us to prove is that, one, we're always going to welcome you back, And two, if you want what's best for your student, you're going to realize that that's here in what we're doing. We've got to earn that trust. We've got to build that relationship. We've got to deliver the results and the experience. And families may need time to see that, but that's certainly what we are committed to showing and proving to the community in this way. The last one on this slide is something we heard through our other conversations at the high school level as well. Families are certainly worried that their class sizes are going to get bigger. That as we're going from 3 schools down to 2, there's going to be more students in these classrooms, and in some cases they feel like they're already overcrowded. What we want to continue to stress to parents, what we want to continue to say to our faculty and staff here as well, is that this is not an effort to increase class sizes. In fact, the way that we allocate teachers and staff is not changing. We'll have the same allocation method that we currently do. What this is about is taking those classrooms down the hall that are empty and making use of them. So really filling out the building to be a full, vibrant school again and not continue to have such underutilized spaces. I mentioned that there was concern about the additional hour, and there certainly was. Aside from the impact to the community that they feel right now, this additional hour is probably the thing that we heard the second most about in these conversations. And part of that is really what families want for their child. Like, hey, I have clubs, I have activities, my kid's in sports, they're doing dance, whatever that may be. We don't want to have to let those go. Other families had super compelling narratives around, hey, I've got doctor's appointments consistently for my child. I want to know how I'm going to keep those if we're changing the school day. And then a real clear position that families want their kids with them. Like, as much as we can have time outside of the school day, that matters to us. We believe in that, and we don't want our children to lose it. And we acknowledge that, and we certainly don't want that either. That's part of why the school becomes a community hub as well, so the family can be at the school together, not always separated because the kid's still at school. But recognizing that we do need additional time to best support your students' academic and developmental growth, and that we are building this recommendation on the research that shows that that is impactful and necessary for us to help your child be ready for what comes next. And then just like with the early college thing, some folks said, not many, but hey, you're only doing this to save money. You're not actually in it for the needs of our students. Again, that couldn't be further from the truth. This will cost us more money, and we will remind you of that in a couple of slides. This is not a cost-saving measure. It is only about what is in the best interest of our students. And then we'll unpack this a little bit more, but the Zapata families in particular wanted to understand, like, why are you choosing us to close? Why not pick one of the other 2 schools? And part of that is due to underutilization, part of that is due to enrollment, but we'll make that more clear in just a second. So also want to be transparent. There are some things we still got to figure out. If you vote yes to this resolution and recommendation tonight, one of the things that we would have to start doing family by family is figuring out what this means for them for next year. So are they going to go to Garza? Are they going to go to Seguin? What are they really interested in pursuing? We will provide transportation to both of those schools. We will also support families who are interested in the transfer process, but we will continue to honor what is a big part of that, which is if you're transferred to another school, you got to provide your own transportation to those locations. Once we have that determined, working with Dr. Geary and her team to figure out final logistics. So which buses are going to which houses at which times, like those routes will have to be reconfigured. And then the last one here is, again, part of what makes the school and the culture come together. What will those experiences and activities be? We've got to hear that first from what our families really want for their students. So there'll be more engagement conversations in the spring to really help define what that looks like. And then last part before we turn it over to Chief Miller to talk about staff implications is to go a bit deeper into why we have recommended Zapata specifically for closure here. And it starts with a decade trend of losing enrollment, not just at these schools, but across the whole district. We presented this in the quality schools analysis. The 3 schools here are shaded in that gray, and you see at best we've lost a quarter of students, and in Garza's case, we've lost almost half of those students in the last decade. That is why we have buildings sitting there vastly underutilized. You can see in this bar chart, the gray is how many students are enrolled at these schools right now. Those percentages tell you how much of the building is being utilized. So we're in the half to 70% range. And the red shows you how many more students could fit in the building. These schools used to be there. They used to be full with these students, and now they aren't, and that's part of what we have to respond to. Even with closing Zapata and moving those students and families to Garza and Seguin, we would still have space for another 138 students comfortably to fit in these two buildings combined. And then the other reason, besides, hey, we don't have as much enrollment to justify 3 buildings, that we are recommending Zapata as the one to close, is as we think about the facility and repair needs that the buildings need. Zapata needs nearly twice as much work as Garza and Seguin combined. Over $7 million of investment would need to be made into that building, which again is only about 60% full, to really make sure it has up-to-date, fully functioning equipment and infrastructure. These are not safety concerns, like students are safe being at Zapata today and tomorrow, but these are longer-term infrastructure needs that we would have to address. But what we also have to keep in mind here is there are budget trade-offs that we've got to grapple with, not only over the next few months, but over the next several years as we think about what the community will ask for in the next strategic plan. And so yes, we could make this $7 million investment in Zapata, but then we have to accept that we've done that in a building that's not fully utilized. We've done that in a building that has not been effectively serving students overall for the past several years. And that means we aren't able to pursue other things in support of our students, like programs that we're not able to invest in, services and supports for students that we have to forego. So all of that, again, leads us to our recommendation to close Zapata and to restart Garza and Seguin with the Accelerated Campus Excellence model. Chief Miller is now going to wrap us up with a reminder on what this means from a staffing perspective.
Good evening. If the board does approve this recommendation tonight, we will move forward with a programmatic change under DFFB. So what does this mean as we are staffing the 2 ACE campuses? This means that all positions will be filled with an application process. We will not be placing people at these campuses. All positions will be filled with the application process. We want to be very clear that this transition is not about any one teacher or any individual, but rather about improving the culture and systems so that we have created lasting success for our students on this campus. We want to have the strongest team in place to implement this restart effectively and ensure that our students are sitting in classrooms where they can grow more than a year every single year. So, as we build the ACE models at Seguin and Garza, we are looking for staff members who embody key qualities. The first is high levels of growth. So we need educators who consistently show student growth and improvement in their classrooms. But this is with all students. So if they have students that are 2 years below the grade level, they have the ability to grow those students 2 years or beyond to ensure that they can go to the next grade level ready to learn. But they also have to be able to improve student growth on high students. So they may have a student who's above grade level. So they have to also ensure that they can grow those students. So all students in their classroom need to show growth. Next is pedagogical expertise. So we need teachers with deep instructional knowledge and a commitment to best practices every single day. We want engaging lessons where a teacher can spot a student's gap in their learning, fill that gap, and help to turn our students' have-tos into their want-tos. We want our students running into the school building and telling their parents, I cannot miss school because I'm going to have this engaging, amazing lesson, and I'm going to be able to learn and understand and be ready for the next grade level. And then we're also looking at cultural and relationships. Throughout my leadership journey, I have lived by the notion that, yes, we have to be data-driven. We have to know where our students are so that we can move them forward. We have to know what their strengths are. We have to know what their weaknesses are. But we also have to be student-informed. So data-driven and student-informed. Because if we're going to remove barriers for our students, we have to know them, right? A lot of times our students have a reason why they're performing how they are. So we need educators who foster strong relationships with our students. They know their students. They know when they are struggling. The student has the ability to come up and say, hey, I'm having a hard day. Can you help me through this? So data-driven but student-informed. But not only are they building relationships with students, also with their colleagues. We're building a team environment on these campuses. They have to be able to work together, to listen to each other, to help grow each other, and with our community. I want to honor what our families said during these engagements. They have a culture of community on their campuses. They love their teachers. So we have to be sure that as we're building our ACE model, we have teachers that are coming together. They are building teams. They're building relationships with their students, with each other, and with our families. And that our families come onto these campuses and they feel like they belong as much as our students feel like they belong. This restart would be an opportunity to put passionate, high-performing educators on these campuses, and they're going to make a lasting impact for our students. So we know that an ACE campus requires additional time. It's going to require effort and dedication. And we are investing funds into these campuses. First, we're going to have competitive stipends that are annual for the principals, assistant principals, teachers, counselors, instructional coaches, and librarian. So a $15,000 stipend for the principal, $12,500 for an assistant principal, $10,000 for teachers, $7,500 for our professional instructional support. And this is to honor that they are going to give more time and effort and ensure that they feel valued for being on an ACE campus. The next is professional development. We're going to have targeted professional development for our teachers on this campus. It may be after hours. It may be sometime during the summer. So we're investing and ensuring that we are supporting our teachers through this ACE model. The next is extended day. So if they have extra duty pay for teachers after 6 p.m., so for transportation or after-school enrichment activities. And next is for climate and culture. Like I said, we have to come together and ensure that everyone feels welcome and part of the team at our ACE campuses. So we are spending more per student on our ACE campuses than we will in other campuses from the district. So how are we selecting our teachers? Because the ACE model is critical to student success, and we know how much the teacher is critical to student success, we have developed a rigorous and structured hiring process to ensure that we are selecting the best candidates for this role. So the first steps will be the application and data review. We will evaluate teachers' experiences, their qualifications, and their demonstrated achievement on their demonstrated impact on student achievement. So looking at how they're growing students. Next is the interview process. So candidates will go through an in-depth interview to assess their instructional expertise, leadership skills, and their commitment to student growth. Last will be a lesson demonstration. So candidates will be asked to deliver a lesson to showcase their ability to engage and instruct students effectively. If they are a La Jolla ISD teacher, then someone will actually go into their classroom and watch a lesson. If they're outside of La Jolla, then they will do a lesson demo within the interview process. This process is intentionally rigorous because we are committed as a district to building a team of high-performing educators who will drive student success and create a culture of excellence on these campuses. So it's intentional that it's rigorous and that we pick the best people to be on these campuses. Now, I am going to say this every single time. There is a human impact in this, and we understand that it is bringing uncertainty. And I'm going to say again that the Human Capital Department, we want to reassure you and our educators that we are committed to walking through them through this process. For those that are impacted, we are providing multiple opportunities to remain within La Jolla ISD. They'll have 4 different pathways to do that. The first is they can apply and be selected at an ACE campus. Next, there is selection during the priority transfer window and the priority job fair. Then there's the selection during the regular transfer window and job fair, and then selection during the open staffing season. We're going to support this process and transition with office hours, with resume writing workshops, having question and answer sessions, and ensuring that we are transparent. Because again, we understand that this is difficult, and we want to ensure that we're walking people through this process. We appreciate our teachers' dedication to our students, and we look forward to working with them and with the district to build an even stronger future for La Jolla ISD. So we hope that our teachers will go through these 4 pathways and remain within La Jolla ISD. So lastly, if you do approve this recommendation, it gives us the permission to start the program change process. And within this process, we would start working with teachers, posting positions, doing interviews, and start placing teachers within these 2 campuses. Tonight, you are not approving positions for a program change. You are giving us permission to enact the program change and to start posting positions, to start having people apply, and to start going through the rigorous interview process. The second part of this will come on April 2nd. And this is when the list of program change positions will come to you. Before we come to you on April 2nd, we are going to ensure that our recruitment and selection process are fully aligned and that we've worked with teachers to help them get into positions that they would like to be in that align with our goals for student success in La Jolla ISD. I want to thank you all tonight for your time and support as we work together to transform campuses and as we are investing in our students' futures. I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Little, and we are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chief Miller. Board, you have an action item tonight that is a resolution for this recommendation, and that's what you would be deciding if you approve or not later in the agenda. So again, we're happy to take questions.
I have one question, Mr. President.
Members of the board, Dr. Margo?
Yeah, Ms. Miller, you had, in your presentation, you included extended day or extra duty pay. That's separate from the stipends?
Yes, so that would be the after school till 6 o'clock. So we do have extended day within the ACE program, which the stipend covers, but if teachers are staying until 6 o'clock, then they would have that extended duty pay.
Okay.
Any other questions from members of the board?
Regarding
go
the
ahead.
ACE campuses, so we're selecting teachers, they're going to interview, and if they do not meet the criteria, they still have the opportunity to go through the other pathways. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Were you getting the answer? Great. Thank you, Mr. Choa. So I just want to highlight for those that are viewing live and for those that may have been misled or been a little confused, I do want to make it clear that it wasn't something we dreamt up, Dr. Little, like you mentioned in your remarks, so thank you for the clarification. This has been something that's been in the process for some time now. Also, I appreciate the fact on page 52 or slide 52, you reference the stakeholder meetings that you conducted throughout the district with parents, with family members, students, our staff, and of course students. So I appreciate that. I think I say this every meeting that we have, every school board meeting, that I appreciate the fact that we do take the time to go into the community and speak to our stakeholders, and we are fully transparent. But I know there's been some confusion on the transportation component of this whole process the actual employment of those individuals that may be affected. And then, of course, I mean, obviously that's understandable, right? But I appreciate the fact, again, that we have taken time from, that you all have taken time to visit with the folks. Mentioned here, Zapata, Garza, and Seguin, the parents, community, and students to discuss these things. So I appreciate that. I mean, that certainly means a lot to this board member, and I'm sure to the rest of my colleagues the same, because that's been reiterated and mentioned multiple times how important it is for us to be listening to the community. Members of the board?
I just want to reiterate what President Alvarez said, and this information is on our website, La Jolla ISD. I've seen the slides presented there as well. So again, to the community, the information is out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've traveled the state, and many of us have traveled, and it's rewarding, and it's exciting to see that our students, when you mentioned that during that time that they would be spending that additional extra hour, that our students could be learning another language. That's coding, it's another language, or robotics. I mean, how exciting is that? And so this is a new experience. I know it's going to be something new to many of the folks that are in this community, but I'm excited because other parts of the state, people are, they're doing the afternoon tutoring or the after school, stuff to try to catch up to be class ranking of #1. And I appreciate the fact that we're doing that for our district. Members?
I would like to point out on the, I've had several family members ask me or tell me they don't really understand the meetings because they're in English. They can't really understand what we're saying. And I saw on the slide, we do have a bilingual website that was launched, but I also, as I was reading some of the stuff just on the picture on the slide, because I haven't been able to access the website, some of the stuff is still in English, or at least what I noticed from this picture. So let's just make sure and our people who speak Spanish have access to Spanish language.
Thank you so much for saying that. We have translated the slide deck into both English and Spanish that we shared in the sessions, and we had in the room translation as well. So folks had to be a bit patient with us as we were going back and forth between English and Spanish in the sessions. But thank you, and we certainly take that feedback seriously and to heart.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that recommendation. Seeing that we have no other questions for Dr. Little or Ms. Miller, we'll go ahead and go on to agenda item 8. Thank you very much, both of you. Great presentation. This will be Superintendent's Constraint Progress Measures and North Star Goal. This will be presented by Joseph and Dr. Sorensen, assisted by Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you, President Alvarez. Forgive me. So this evening, I bring to the board and to the community an update on the superintendent constraints. I had brought this forward in November to the board and to the community with the promise that I would bring an update by the end of January. And so I wanted to bring before the board and the community the update, but also ask for some grace as I am not finished yet with the constraint progress measures, but wanted to be transparent in my thinking as to why I am not finished yet, and share that both with the board and the community where I am in the process of creating my constraint progress measures. So as we move forward, I always think it is really important as we talk about Lone Star governance and our role as a board in Lone Star governance to always ground ourselves in the tenets of Lone Star governance, really stating that student outcomes don't change until adult behaviors change. And so our work as a board is grounded in improving student outcomes here in La Jolla ISD, and that as a school system, we exist to improve student outcomes. And so I always want to start Lone Star governance conversations around our work around the improvement of student outcomes. And so want to remind both the community and the board of the constraints that the board so graciously passed November 20th, 2024. Constraint 1 being that the superintendent shall not allow conditions that decrease student achievement. And so I want to reference just the previous presentation by members of my cabinet in terms of that being an example of the superintendent not allowing conditions that decrease student achievement. I hold myself and my cabinet and us as a district to the highest expectations when it comes to increasing student achievement and not allowing conditions that decrease or maintain situations where students are not achieving educational excellence for all. Constraint 2, the superintendent shall not allow conditions that harm students with disabilities. And so I thank the board for, I think a month or two ago, allowing us to engage in an audit of our special education services. And so we are in the process right now of doing an audit of our special education program and services with an external partner. And so I thank you for allowing us to do that work and look at ourselves more deeply. And so we will be talking about the audit results at the end of February, beginning of March, so that we can continue to ensure that we are doing the very best work to make sure that we are not allowing conditions to harm students with disabilities. And then constraint 3, the superintendent shall not allow conditions that purposely compromise transparency and trust with the community. And so just like with the early college presentation and the previous presentation, and the 8 community presentations on the quality seats analysis, and the 4 presentations with district staff on the quality seats analysis, we have attempted to be as transparent and open with the community around shifts, around current state, and around proposed school actions. Now, I always do want to say that transparency, conversation, engagement does not always result in agreement. It does not always result in agreement. But the opportunity for conversation, the opportunity for dialogue, the opportunity for us to listen, learn, reflect, adjust, and be transparent about the why in order to continue to build trust is what I, as the superintendent, will promise this board and this community that I will continue to do, not only as part of my constraints, but as part of my role as a superintendent who truly cares about this community and everyone in it. Next slide. So as I then think about deeply, what are the measures that I want to then ask the board to approve as I hold myself and my team ultimately accountable for delivering on that promise? I think about the progress measures for each of those constraints. And so for constraint progress measure 1, around student achievement, I am proposing to the board any campus with a D or F rating for 2 consecutive years would receive a strategic academic intervention initiated by the superintendent. This falls in line with the previous presentation that we just saw around the recommendation around our ACE campuses. So we would see that campuses were declining for multiple years, and we would take action. Now, this does not say that it would always result in a school action. I'm not stating that. But if we have campuses that are declining for 2 consecutive years, we're called to action. We absolutely must intervene, because if we do not, we know what long-term trajectories are for students. The evidence is clear. And so it's my responsibility to ensure that we are not allowing conditions that decrease student achievement. We cannot allow it, and it is my responsibility then to intervene where needed. And so that is the first one that I am proposing to the board. And then the second progress measure that I would propose to the board is also in alignment with what I'll talk about shortly, is a North Star goal. As a district, we know, and we've talked about it, we want to be an A district. That's the big goal, right? We absolutely should be an A district. We have incredible employees. We have incredible students. You guys saw it. You were just out there at all of our campuses. There's absolutely no reason that over the next 5 years, we should not be striving to be an A district. Well, that's going to require us to move the needle on what we set as board goals, right? We need more students to be at meets or above, whether that be in reading or math and at each level, which is why we set board goals, and then we set our board goal progress measures. So we also then, as part of System of Grade Schools, have to set a North Star goal. And so what I am proposing then, in order for us to get there as a district, is that we will increase A and B, students who attend A and B campuses by 6% over the next 5 years. And in the next slide, I will show you what that means for us as a district, because we currently sit at 84% of students sitting in A and B campuses, and if we increase by 6, it will be 90% of our students who will attend A and B campuses, which then tips us over to being an A district, our true North Star goal. For Constraint Progress Measure 2, around students with disabilities, this is where I'm asking for grace, and this is where I will bring this back after we get the special education audit back. I didn't feel that it was appropriate for me right now to be setting progress measures without truly knowing the results of the audit. I don't know what it's going to say, but I'm anticipating that it's going to say that there are some things that we as a district need to fix and need to address in order to ensure that students with disabilities are getting the most robust and appropriate education, that we are ensuring that they are getting the highest quality services. And so I'm asking for a pause rather than me creating progress measures here. I'd like these progress measures to be informed by the findings of the audit. And then I'd like to hold myself accountable to the findings of the audit. And then recommendation for Constraint Progress Measure 3 is around trust and transparency. And so 3.1 is around school actions. And so school actions will not occur without significant engagement. That includes feedback from the community. And so whether it was the early college recommendation, school action, or the one that you just saw, there was significant engagement and feedback from the community, from my team, as well as from myself. And so we bring it forward with that level of engagement. And again, reminding that we may not always, at the end of that path, that journey, agree on the outcome, but that the opportunity for dialogue and discourse was there. And as with the early college presentation, there was an adjustment in the proposal based upon what we heard. And then 3.2 is another place that I would ask for some grace around a district climate survey. So as district priorities, I had said earlier that we want to hear from our employees and our stakeholders. And so we want to begin to do an annual district climate survey. It's very important to me to hear from our stakeholders around how do they feel about being a part of the district. Right now I'm doing a survey about strategic planning. That's separate. We want to do an annual district climate survey, and we will launch one in spring of 2025. And once we get that baseline data, then I can set a progress measure about how we will grow over the next 5 years. But I didn't, again, think it would be appropriate to set a growth measure until I had baseline data on how our stakeholders felt about engaging with the district on particular topics. Again, I want to hold myself to the highest standard in terms of moving the needle on how people feel engaging with the district. And so setting a random target I didn't think would be appropriate or hold myself to the highest standard. So what I am proposing here for now is that it is the launch of a district climate survey in spring of 2025. Any questions from the board before I go on to the next slide? Okay.
Nope.
So I want to again lean into how this relates to the North Star goal and our work around the system of great schools. And so, next slide. So thus far this year, we've done quite a bit of work with our System of Great Schools work. We've talked quite a bit about our quality seats analysis, and really, I always talk about our quality seats analysis as a kind of state of the district. How are we doing as a district? How do we look at the district as a whole? It's this comprehensive analysis of current state. And then from there, we develop an annual school plan, which really says, okay, so now here's where we are. How do we respond? What do we need to do? And so what you've seen as a result of that is 2 school actions that we have proposed to the board. And we also shared with you district improvement plans, school improvement plans, based upon some data that we looked at school by school. And then this spring, we will bring forward our North Star goal, which again, I am proposing as the constraint progress measure 1.2. That will also align the North Star goal with the strategic planning that I do for 25, 26, and beyond. So the point is to have a system that's working all together. We have our board goals, superintendent constraints, constraint progress measures, all ultimately to get us to that North Star goal of being an A district, and we do that by increasing A and B seats. So it all works together as a system so that we have incredible opportunities for our families, and that our families trust that we have high quality, best fit schools and high quality seats in every single school across our district. So as you see here, it just really breaks it down here, that the percentage of students who attend A and B campuses district-wide. District-wide. This isn't that every school has to increase by 6%. This is that the students who attend A and B campuses district-wide will increase by 6%. So right now we are at 84%, so that August 2029, we will be at 90%. So that is the North Star goal that I will continue to propose when we actually bring it forward for a vote with the entire body of superintendent constraints.
Dr. Sorensen, I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. The 6%, if we do end up implementing the ACE program at the 2 schools, wouldn't that, and then the idea behind the ACE is that within 2 years, the school could go from a DF rating to an AB. Wouldn't that get covered by those 2 schools from the population, based on the population of those 2 schools?
Those 2 schools would go up, but it still allows some room for C campuses. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I definitively anticipate that those DNF campuses will go up within their 3-year time period. Mm-hmm. And we still have some C campuses that we need to move. And so the 6% allows us to really look at those C campuses as well and move those campuses to A and B campuses. It also allows us to take a look at the percentage of kids, just like with our board goals, who are currently at approaches, and move those kids who are approaches to meets, and move B campuses to A campuses. And so it sounds a little weedy, but we've got to increase the kids along the continuum in order to move ratings and accountability.
Right, thank you.
Absolutely.
Members of the board, do we have any other questions regarding the specific topic for Dr. Sorensen before she moves on?
No.
Okay, Dr. Sorensen, you may proceed with goal progress measures 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3 presented by Dr. Little.
Thank you. So I am excited to welcome the team up to do our very first, to do our very first Lone Star Governance presentation around our goal progress measure 4.1, 4.2, and 4.3, addressing our goal 4. So we worked really hard as a board and as a team at Cabinet to establish not only our board goals, but the goal progress measures. And so we are very excited to stand before you this evening and report out for the first time on our goal progress measures. And so Dr. Little, if you want to introduce the team and report out, we would be very grateful.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Good evening again. I am joined by Ms. Tamara Albury, our Deputy Chief of School Leadership, and familiar face in these conversations, Ms. Melinda Flores, our very long title, Executive Director of Assessment Accountability and School Quality. So she and her team are certainly a big part of how we monitor our progress and respond to it in these conversations. As the superintendent said, tonight is about Goal 4. That is our high school focused goal for college, career, military readiness. We're not sharing the headline goal tonight. That'll come later on, but what we are looking at are those goal progress measures. Remember, we adopted goal progress measures for each goal, which are really an indicator of if we are on the pathway that will lead us to achieving that overall goal by our 2029 sort of target at this point. Goal 4 is broken down into 3 buckets. So we're looking at college-ready information. We're also looking at career-ready information in our more CTE-related space. And we're paying attention to the start of the journey with our freshmen. Like, are our freshmen actually on track in that first year so that we can better attain those outcomes in college-ready and career-ready measures? So on this slide, we are actually showing overall status for each of the GPMs right now. Part of this presentation, in terms of format, will get very familiar to you in the community because we will consistently sort of present in this way as part of our work with Lone Star Governance. And that's being super transparent at the beginning about where we are with each of these measures. And you can see we are not at all where I want to be. And that is slightly off track for all 4 of these. On the next slide, I'll spend a few minutes actually unpacking this, but part of what you can see for each of these are our college-ready rates for TSI and associate degree attainment, our career-ready measure with completer status with industry-based credentials and certification, and our freshmen on track at this point, all slightly off track. So how did we land there? Like, what do we do to determine what status these have? And there's 3 factors that we're looking at, or 3 components. The first is whether that headline target in the GPM or the goal has either already been met or we believe will be met by the end of the year without any significant sort of change or intervention. If that is true, we've met our first criteria to be on track. The second thing that we're looking at are our specific student populations. As you'll remember in Lone Star Governance, we're required to set targets and report out on certain student populations. And in our case in La Jolla, we have 3 that are large enough to consistently measure and share, and you'll see that data. But if those populations are also meeting their targets or will meet their target in high likelihood by the end of the year, that's the second thing we're looking at to be on track. And then the third thing here is really a deeper look at what this means across the entire district for all students in La Jolla ISD. So how is every campus performing or achieving against that goal or GPM target? If they look like they're meeting that expectation as well, that's our third and final factor here. All 3 of those being a yes, we would say we're on track. The reason all 4 of ours tonight are slightly off track is because we can't say yes to all 3 of those things. And you'll see the data, and we're going to continue to be transparent and clear about this, but we don't have every one of our campuses where they need to be, which means we don't have all of our students where they need and deserve to be. So that's why we've indicated the status as it is for these 4. In some cases, we may not be meeting any of these, and there may not be much likelihood that we meet it by the end of that measurement period, and so that would lead us to an off-track status. So again, just really wanted to pause before we dig in these tonight because we will continue to use this criteria moving forward. As you remember from last meeting, we now have a Lone Star Governance update at every board meeting. All the way through the rest of this school year. And so this will really anchor us into those conversations as we move forward. I'm going to hand it off now to Ms. Flores, who's actually going to walk us through our 2 College Ready related GPMs.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Good evening. The first progress measure that I'll be going over is 4.1A, and that is our College Ready GPM, and this one focuses on our TSI-A for reading and math. And so our Texas Success Initiative Assessment is an assessment required for all entering students into Texas public institutions. It is also an assessment that is required of all students attaining an associate's degree. And so I'm going to walk you through the track for our data for the percent of our graduates passing TSI in both the reading and the math. And so as you can see here, the solid lines represent our historical data. And you'll see that in 22-23, we were at 28%. And the same for 23-24. That star that you're seeing is our current progress measure, and that has us at that 24.7%. And our future targets are those that you're seeing in that dotted line, and that is the 28 and 34% by the attainment of the 5th year of our HB3 goal. What you do see on the right top side is, again, as Dr. Little mentioned, the student groups that we're responsible for progress monitoring. So in the all-student group, we are currently at 24.7% of our students attaining this goal progress measure. Our Hispanic group is at 24.3%, and our high focus group is at 21.8%. I also want to unpack high focus, and that is all students that are identified as economically disadvantaged. They're emergent bilingual. And so that is our current and our monitored English language learners. It's also students identified as special education students and a highly mobile group. And that encompasses our foster, our homeless, and our migrant students. So in essence, we have that duty and responsibility of monitoring the progress and the targets and outcomes of all of our students. At the lower portion of it, I also do want to show the campus by campus comparison that we have. And this is looking at our class of 2025 students and where we're currently at, what that top number transcends to at the campus level. And so the red bar is indicating already those students that have attained our goal progress measure. What we now need to make sure that we're doing in the spring is making sure that we're turning that blue bar, because that blue bar indicates our students that have already been successful and attained that assessment in the area of the math. However, they're still lacking the English component. And vice versa, those students that you see in that yellow-orange portion are the students that have already been successful in the assessment in English, but are lacking the math. And so we are confident that making sure that we're looking at this data and taking us from the current status of being slightly off track is going to get us to our 28% target. And of course, this is the data, but we know that the data and these raw numbers have to become actionable. And those concrete actions are what we have at the lower right-hand side of our presentation. And that is making sure that we're being very strategic and very intentional with the improvement process that we have in the responses. And that is making sure that we're working with our academic team to ensure that we have stronger curriculum supports and supplemental supports along with that HQIM for the students to be prepared for these assessments. We also have to make sure that because we know that they're seniors and they're about to graduate, that we have those prep sessions, whether it's in intervention courses that they have during the day, after school tutorials, or Saturday opportunities to also be provided with the intervention to get them there. That includes engaging those students needing to pass and having those conversations, those one-to-one conversations with the adults that are providing the supports at our campuses, but on the other side, also with the school leadership, working with our administration and all staff to get our principals working with their administrators, all stakeholders, teachers, and teachers with our students to ensure that we are hitting the outcomes that we have for our goal. And so as you could see, there's a lot of work that we need to do. You could see specific campuses that we have to be more intentional with. You can see that while the specialty campuses have that focus because they are the ones currently working with students attaining that associate degree, we want to make sure that all students at La Jolla ISD receive this opportunity and are able to graduate college ready. And another thing just to note is the current status is not going to change. We cannot take a dip. We can only move forward in the spring semester, again, with those concrete actions being applied. In the next GPM, that is also part of the college readiness aspect, that is 4.1B, and that is making sure that we are meeting the goal progress measure for students attaining an associate degree. And so taking you through the same course, again, the solid lines indicate our historical data for our students that have graduated, the percent of graduates with that associate degree. So you will note that in 22-23, 9% of the students at La Jolla ISD attained that associate degree, while we took that dip in 2003-2004 to 7%. Where we're currently at is at that 11.5%, and then our future targets taking us to that 8.5 and 9.5. And I just want to clarify why we put that term of why we're slightly off track. If you remember what Dr. Little mentioned in those indicators is that we're making sure that it's all students, all subgroups, and all campuses. And so while our current target is to be at 8.5, and while you are seeing that 11.6, 12.1, and 10% for our student populations, I'm going to draw your attention to our side-by-side campus comparison. And we have our blue campuses that are currently offering that pathway and that early college pathway. We are not there when it comes to those red comprehensive high school campuses, but we, again, want to ensure that we are providing that opportunity, which is why we've opened up and are planning on expanding our P-TECH pathway so that every single student that is at La Jolla ISD has that opportunity to earn an associate degree. And again, that's going to take actionable steps, such as making sure that we're improving our interventions for our students, working with individual students again, and really closely monitoring this spring semester. We are very fortunate that our partner works with us, provides us with starfish reports, and we've got the data that we know, and we know the students that are enrolled in these courses. And again, living up to the promise that we made to our students and to our community, that when they're enrolled in these programs to earn that associate degree, that they will cross that line and they will persist and finish and earn that degree, which is the promise we've made. And so, again, the reason that we are putting slightly off track on this goal is because that persistence sometimes gets to some of our students. Sometimes these students, while they're at the end and about to cross that finish line, things happen. These are students very highly involved in their academics, but also in enrichment opportunities. And sometimes those tough courses, like those political science courses, and these highly advanced science courses, by the trends in the data that we've analyzed, tell us that the students sometimes get to that point where they drop, or where they're not successful academically with those programs. And again, that's a call to action on our end, that we have to make this data actionable, and that we have to have those very strategic supports for every single campus and for all of our students to attain the outcomes that we've promised.
Thank you, Ms. Forrest. President, if you don't mind, I want to just jump in for 1 second. This is a space that we had healthy robust, right, Dr. Little? Conversation about where we could have chosen to come to the board this evening and told you that this is on track. And I want to say that out loud to the community and to the board, because if you look at current, we've exceeded the target. Here we are mid-year and we've exceeded the target. And so as a team, we exceeded it. And so we could have said congratulations and we're on track, and we did that. Where we had conversation, I think, Ms. Flores has done an incredible job of pointing it out, is number one, there is potential, although we are going to do everything within our adult power to not allow for slippage for our children, because as the adults, we are going to provide those wraparound supports for our young people and not allow that senior slip to happen. But two, when we think about it in terms of all high schools, we want to ensure that we are doing our best at all campuses. And so as a team, we were not comfortable saying we are on track, if not all of our high schools are where we really want them to be. So while we have already met the target at mid-year, and so the team's working very hard, and so I do want to acknowledge that. And everyone is working very hard, and so I never want to just sit up here and say, slightly off track, slightly off track, slightly off track, because the target was met. And we never want to message to our community that it's good enough when all of our campuses are not where we want them to be yet. So I wanted to just point out that this is where we as a team have really rich conversation, but did want to point out to the community as well as to the board why we didn't status ourselves as on track, although the data clearly shows that we were, according to the target.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen.
Okay, leading us into the next goal progress measure 4.2, we have Ms. Albury, who will be going over the next slides.
Thank you, Executive Director Flores. I'll be discussing the third and fourth goal progress measure. I'm elated to discuss 4.2, which pertains to career readiness and industry-based certifications, or IBCs. The goal of IBCs are to prepare students for success in the workforce, military, post-secondary education, and represent valued skills that lead to employment and act as a springboard for higher levels of achievement. As we look at this data, some things that we want to make you aware of. This is senior data, class of 2025. The criteria to be considered a CTE completer prevents us from increasing these numbers during the spring semester. Therefore, the data is lagging. We are course correcting with our freshman and sophomore students through the streamlining of course trajectories, the evaluation of course enrollments currently, ensuring that Tier 1 instruction is happening in our classes, and providing supports needed that will result in completer outcomes for all of our students. Based upon the state's redefined criteria and our forward-leaning application of rigorous standards for ourselves, we are advancing from the 3.3% achievement to the 37% goal. What you'll note when we look closely at the data is that it is broken down by high schools. The red bars signify current completion rates, and the blue represents the projected data. Historically, comprehensive high schools have leaned into ensuring students are career ready as a way of earning that college and career and military readiness measure, and their data shows us, as you can see. Also, as Ms. Flores has highlighted, when you look at the top graph, the solid line represents our historical data, and the dotted line represents where we are headed. It is true we have not met and are currently off track, yes. Is it also true that we are being strategic in our efforts? Not only at the district level, but at the campus level, teams are working to provide interventions and student support. All of these strategic efforts to ensure that our projected goals are met. Our next goal is 4.3. relates to freshmen on track. Freshman year is an exciting time and also a time of many changes. The district has made a significant investment in ensuring freshmen are on track to graduate college and be career and military ready. Before we review our current data, we want to revisit the customized La Jolla ISD definition that is rooted in over 2 decades of research by the University of Chicago. In La Jolla ISD, for a freshman to be on track for graduation by the end of the 9th grade year, 3 things must be true. A student must earn at least 6 credits, not be failing more than 1 semester of a core course, and not be chronically absent. When we look at chronic absenteeism, it is important that we understand the importance of attendance in student success. If a student is not in class, they are not learning. If they are not learning, they will not get what they need to be college and career ready. If a student misses more than 10% of school, or roughly 2 days of school a month, they are considered chronically absent. Now that we've defined freshman on track means, let's look at our data. When we apply our freshman on track data to previous years, which is noted once again by the solid line, we see that historically we've been around 50%, which is roughly 1 out of every 2 freshmen that are on track to graduate. Our target goal is 58% for all of our student groups. Under the superintendent's leadership, we are leading our students to our 58% goal and beyond. When we look at our continuous improvement responses, what we want to highlight for you are the efforts that we have made ensuring that our students that have gone off track in the fall from either attendance, reasons, or failures in courses that are now on track in the spring by providing credit recovery and summer intervention practices as well as individualized counseling. And we cannot, of course, forget our freshman success coordinators. The district has made a significant investment in ensuring that our freshmen have someone that is designated to make sure that they are successful by meeting with them, being an advocate for them, and guiding the work of our teachers as a whole. So while we are slightly off track, there are great efforts to meet the target. What this data highlights for us as a district is how we are doing in our campuses, and for our campuses, it highlights how they fare against their peers, as well as areas in need of focus as a campus, department-wise. Our next piece of data specifically looks at our courses and our course failures. As we progressed, we started at the district level, looking at district level data, so as a district, this is what we're looking at. And now we're looking more specifically at our high schools and our department needs. You can see attendance is our opportunity as you see our students who are off track because of just academic factors and our students who are also off track once we add the attendance piece. Why are we looking at this data? We are looking at this data in this way to be strategic in our efforts. Through our various departments, our various resources, and our various supports, it is important that we know exactly where to direct our efforts to make the biggest impact. For example, if you look at our course failures, Algebra 1, 150 of La Jolla ISD freshmen this year have received a failing grade in the fall for Algebra 1. This is a signal to us as a district that there is a need to put our efforts into making sure that our campuses and our teachers are getting what they need to be successful. Our freshman on track efforts are not just about providing supports for students, but making sure the adults that work with them are also successful. We have learned through the data our areas of needs and are pivoting to support our campuses. The challenges that we have before us are whether the student in that seat is receiving what they need to be successful, whether the teacher is receiving what they need to ensure the student is successful, and finally, the campus leader. Are they receiving what they need to ensure their campus success? This is our freshman on track work. As we continue to grow in this work, we are looking at data from every angle to be strategic with our supports and ensure student success. Freshman on Track continues to be an early alarm system to ensure that our students are on a trajectory of success so that they're able not only to be college and career ready, but ready for the world. As we look at this data here, once again, as a district, while we are looking at our comprehensive high schools, some of our comprehensive high schools have employ different standards. And so once a month that we are meeting to share best practices as well as understand where we need to go. So here you can see in regards to Juarez Lincoln, they have fewer courses in which 10 or more students are failing. And so as we're looking at as we're looking at the campuses and we're looking at the data, we are seeing where our departments, where our academic departments, where's the work that we need to look at, whether it's curriculum and a variety of those things.
I think one other thing to note here, Board, is as we're looking at this as a campus level, our campus leaders are also looking at this at classroom level data. So teacher by teacher, classroom by classroom, let's understand where we have trends and opportunities, and that's then conversations they can sit down with either that classroom, that grade level team, that content team, and really start to dig in and unpack what are the barriers that students are facing in these courses and in these classrooms that are leading to these results so we can turn that around. And then finally, what we wanted to share with you and with the community is how we're supporting schools overall and what resources they have on their campus to directly impact these outcomes. So we've now spent this entire presentation looking at various high school data, and our high schools have quite a few people in those buildings that exist solely to help students be successful in these areas. Yes, we're not surprised we've got principals and APs and they're responsible for overall leadership of the building. But when we look at the student support roles and we think about these 4 GPMs, we have additional capacity that is responsible for helping students get to these outcomes. So our counselors and social workers providing overall support to students through advising, through additional mental health, social emotional development, thinking about individualized or family-based needs so that those are not barriers to success and attainment for the student. Our college transition advisors and graduation specialists both taking the lens on, is the student making progress through the curriculum? Are they earning the right grades? Are they ready for what comes after a La Jolla ISD diploma? Truancy prevention facilitator really thinking about that attendance data. It's not good. Like, you're getting an update from us later this week on attendance data from the fall. And we've got a lot of work to do to better get our students showing up every day and benefiting from the hard work that our teachers and staff are putting forward. But again, this is a dedicated staff member every day thinking just about, are my students here? And if they are not, what are we doing to help get them back to school? Our CTE strategists are looking at that completer status and our industry-based credentials and making sure that kids are in the right courses, that we have the right partners, and that we're providing the right supports to help them be successful. And then through our partnership with Gear Up at those specific schools, there's a Gear Up coordinator thinking again about overall support and mentoring and development for students. And then this year with our Freshman on Track work, having a dedicated freshman success coach at our comprehensive high schools. We have a shared coach at our specialty schools who, again, is coordinating all of that freshman team to really understand where each student is. All of these roles at our comprehensive high schools alone represent a nearly $5 million investment that we are making in staff responsible day in and day out for helping students with these outcomes and these opportunities. So we wanted to wrap up with that and really help clarify and show the ways in which we have a support system developed at the campus for these outcomes. And again, happy to take questions. Oh, before we do that, one thing I do want to share, maybe, I don't see it, we will make sure it gets added, but we will consistently have a slide in the appendix of these updates that shows the data for emergent bilingual students and special education students in particular. Just like the superintendent just laid out in the constraints, we will always be transparent about how those student groups are doing in the district. So apologies that it's not here right now, but we'll make sure that gets posted online.
Thank you, Dr. Little. Dr. Sorensen, you want to add anything to this presentation?
Thank you, President Alvarez. Yes, I do want to add one thing. Dr. Little, can you go back to the support slide? Thank you. One of the reasons why we wanted to kind of capture this piece here is because we are about to head into budget season. And I think it's really important that as we head into budget season, I think Ms. Crespo would say we are already in budget season, we're having lots of conversation about academic return on investment, what we call AROI. And we have to think about how we're spending every dollar. We have to ask ourselves, are we getting the return on the investment that we're making in terms of student outcomes. And sometimes, people will say, well, I need more people. I don't have enough people to do the work. And in this space, there are enough people, and the resources are there, and yet the outcomes are not, especially in some of these metrics. And so it's, again, my responsibility, along with the team, to start to look at, is it the system that's not working, right? Or is it the structures that aren't working? Because, we look at completer status. That's a system and structure that's been in place prior to our arrival, and those outcomes are not acceptable. Now, again, we know that the kids haven't taken the test yet. Yes, we've had those conversations. He's smiling because we had them. And it's not okay to still have those outcomes when we know that at the end of that pathway is earning potential for our students and for our children and ultimately for our community. And so I want to be, again, transparent to say that as we're in budget season and really looking at how are we spending our dollars, we've got to ask ourselves, are we going to continue to replicate the system that is producing those results? Or are we going to think about ways that we need to continue to support our students and support our families and support our schools holistically, that also then increases the outcomes for students? And so I, again, want to put that before the board and the community, that we are asking ourselves those questions, because this is the current system that is in place, and those are the current results.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Members of the board, do we have any questions for Dr. Little, Ms. Ting?
I just wanted to clarify, what is a Gear Up coordinator?
Do you want to answer that?
I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, do you want
What's a Gear Up coordinator?
Yeah.
With our Gear Up grant, so that's a partnership that we have with other organizations. Gear Up is really focused on how do you get students traditionally that may not always have opportunities after high school, how do you get them a successful high school experience and then support them into their post-secondary space as well. So they provide mentoring, they provide academic advising, they provide other access to resources, supports, tutoring, like a whole range of things. But it's really making sure that not only do they successfully graduate high school, but they're started off in the right track for what they do after high school, usually focused on college.
And two of our high schools currently, Palmview and La Jolla, have a Gear Up coordinator. We're currently writing a grant for Juarez to have one for next year. But the two high schools that have it right now are Palmview and La Jolla.
Good question. Do we have any questions or further questions for our presenters?
No.
All right, thank you very much to all three of you. Great presentation, very informative as well. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of those who made presentations tonight to the board. Very well appreciated. I know there's a lot of work involved in your presentations, detail, and we appreciate the fact that you were able to answer all of our questions. With that said, we're going to go ahead and move on to our consent agenda items. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda will be going into closed session. For the purposes authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Sections 551.001, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.129, 551.082, and 551.0821 concerning any and all purposes permitted by the Act, including but not limited to the sections and purposes listed above, or I should say below. With that said, we will be going into closed session. It is now 8:25. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back from closed session. It is 11:10 p.m. First item on the agenda is item number 12.1, approval of energy professional services. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve 12.1.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 12.2, approval of policy and regulation updates, local DEC, local leaves and absences. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 12.2.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Yes.
Yeah, there's a little shift to the effective date on 12.2.
Okay, great.
Good evening. Just a clarification. The update for the local DEC leaves and absences policy is to be in effect for the 2025-2026 school year.
Thank you, Ms. Crespo.
So, Joe, Phil, do I need to restate the motion?
No, it's fine.
The clarification of the year date of 2025, 2026?
Correct.
Okay.
Just to make sure that the minutes are correct.
Done? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Next item, 12.3, approval of the 2024-2025 district improvement plan and campus improvement plans. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve item 12.3.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. The following night is agenda item 12.4, consider and take action on the resolution for the Accelerated Campus Excellent ACE program, school restart, closure of Emiliano Zapata Elementary, and the associated program change. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Do I have all of those in favor signify by saying aye?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 12.5, consider and take action regarding level 3 DGBA grievance filed by Alfredo Trujillo. Do I have a motion?
I move that the board uphold the level 2 decision of the administration and deny the grievance.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. The following item is agenda item 12.6, consider and take action regarding level 3 DGBA grievance filed by Evangelina Salcedo. Do I have a motion?
I move that the board uphold the level 2 decision of the administration and deny the grievance.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 12.7, consider and take action to send notice of proposed termination to term contract employee Angela Gonzalez. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the motion.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, it brings us to the portion of our calendar for the record and for those that are watching. February 10th, 2025, makeup day for January 21st, which was recently a bad weather day for us in 2025. February 12th, 2025, regular board meeting. February 26th, 2025, regular board meeting. March 12th, 2025, regular board meeting. March 17th through the 21st, 2025, spring break, no school. March 26th, 2025, special called board meeting, student recognitions. Next item on the agenda is Superintendent's remark. Marcy Sorensen, Dr. Sorensen.
Yes, Mr. Nagella is going to pull up the upcoming dates for our strategic planning work. So I am super excited to continue working with our community around the strategic planning and visioning for 2025, 26, and beyond. Starting with tomorrow morning, bright and early, we are going to have our strategic planning for our pre-K families. So that is our current pre-K3, pre-K4 parents and future pre-K3 and pre-K4 parents and families. Then we will move into tomorrow evening, where we will have athletics parents and families from 6 to 7:30 here at Central Office. So please, parents of our athletes and our student athletes, please come out. Next week, Tuesday, February 4th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., parents of students with special needs, special education, parents and families, please, again, central office from 6 to 7:30, Tuesday, February 4th. And then on Thursday, February 6th, from 6 to 7:30, parents of students who are in our CTE programs. Again, these are intentional sessions to hear about not only your hopes and dreams for the programs for the future, but also feedback for us on where you'd like to see us go as leaders in the district as we plan for next year and beyond, so that we can hear from our community and our parents and families on where they want to see these programs grow and thrive, and also where there are areas that maybe we can stop, where, we're not doing so well, but we want to grow new places and vision out new ways to grow programming across the district. So please come out. This means a lot to us as a district. It's, again, we keep saying this, it is your voice, our district. We cannot do the strategic planning without you. In addition to the strategic planning, we also have a community survey. The survey is open to all members of the community, not just employees, not just parents, but also our students and community stakeholders. And so the QR code is there, but it is also on our website. It is out there on social media. So please, please, please take the community survey. We really do want to hear from as many stakeholders as possible. Thank you, Board President.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Do any of the board members have any closing remarks before we adjourn for this evening?
No.
Seeing that we don't have any closing remarks, I'll go ahead and, do I have a motion to adjourn today's meeting? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion of us adjourning the meeting at 11:18 p.m.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned, 11:18 p.m.